Hey guys, I've been thinking a lot, and I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, and I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I've given a lot of thought into the topic of where our future is headed, my future specifically, and more generally, the future of the human race. And so, whenever I think about the future, I get pretty excited about all the possibilities of space travel and artificial intelligence and medical technology, but there are a few things that concern me, and I just wanted to talk about those things today. So without further ado, these are the things that keep me up at night. So like I said, I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks lately, and one of the audiobooks that I listened to recently that I really enjoyed was called 21 Ideas for the 21st Century. So this book talked about a lot of different topics like politics, religion, artificial intelligence. I think one of the most striking things that this book made me realize is that the wealth inequality problem that we're facing right now is only going to get worse and is inevitable to get worse. 2020 has been pretty bad. The pandemic has caused what people refer to as a K-shaped recovery. People that were already active in the stock market and in real estate are doing really well right now, especially if they bought the dip in March. And then there are people that have fell further into debt. I think whenever I looked at the data last time, the bottom quintile, so if you want to look at the US economy, you can divide it into 5 quintiles of the bottom 20% of wealth, and then the next 20%, the middle 20%, the next 20%, and then the top 20%. So if you look at the bottom 20%, they have a negative net worth because they are in debt. The next 20% have a net worth that was around $6,000, give or take, I think. And then the median of the middle quintile was around $60,000 of net worth. And so I can only imagine how much worse this has gotten with the pandemic, with millions of people losing their jobs, millions of jobs never returning, because after the layoffs, companies invested in more automation and replaced those jobs, and now they're more efficient, which means they have much bigger profits. So anyway, this thing just created this mess of killing a whole bunch more jobs, and people's situations are even more dire than before. Another thing that 2020 has shown us is how much racial injustice there still is in this country and how widespread systemic racism is. So there's this YouTube channel that I found called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, and I highly recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel. And I'm actually listening to the audiobook by the same author right now, and it's opened my eyes to just how bad of a starting point Black people in the United States have, and other persons of color, when you account for the fact that a major signal of wealth in this country is home ownership, and there's inherent bias built into the lending process, FHA loan process. There's widespread voter suppression, gerrymandering, all kinds of issues, and all of these kind of compound into making it a lot harder for people that may have been in the bottom quintile for many generations. In fact, it makes it much harder for people to have mobility from one of those lower quintiles into a higher quintile. So I've been fortunate enough to be born white and born male, and so that comes with a lot of opportunities that not everyone has. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that privilege that I have, and I have to acknowledge that that's a big part of how I've gotten to the point where I am. I'm an engineer in the Silicon Valley, and I almost have enough buying power to buy my first house. Just a little bit more saving and investing to go. But even for someone like me with all these advantages that I was born with, it's actually been pretty tough. I'm 28 and I'm just now getting to the point where I can own a house. Think back a few decades, people were already married with kids and they own their own home at this age. And so I think this is a widespread issue and there's no easy solution to it. I had the advantage of having a pretty reasonable salary, especially for my age, because I'm in the software engineering business and those are pretty well paid jobs. But yeah, I had a comfortable salary and my net worth still stagnated. And then this summer, something clicked and I started to really want to focus on figuring out my budget and figuring out how to invest. And within the span of about 6 months, I doubled my net worth. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I think there's 2 components to this. I think the number of advantages you have will get you most of the way there to where you can enjoy a comfortable middle class lifestyle. And obviously for people with fewer advantages, this is way, way more difficult and they have to be much more conscious about this. But for me to have any more upward mobility from where I started, and in order to kick things into high gear, I needed to become intentional about how I spend my money and how I invest my money. And I don't mean to say that the outcome of people's lives is based on personal responsibility. I think your environment and the situation you were placed in at birth has a huge impact on where you end up. And so that's the unfortunate truth that we have to face and admit that we have a lot of problems in this country that we need to fix and in the world generally. But what I really want to do on this channel is think critically about these kinds of problems and try to come up with solutions and listen to my audience and engage with them on social media, and we can kind of turn this into a conversation and figure out what we can do or what we can say that might help some other people. But back to the topic of wealth inequality and why I'm worried about it going forward. I think that it's going to get much worse even after this pandemic is over. There are a lot of fiscal cliffs that are about to end if we don't get that second stimulus bill out. So who knows what 2020 has in store, but the US dollar is falling rapidly, and I like to be an optimist about things, but I really don't see this getting any better. So we need to do something drastic in order to fix this. So I think a lot of the responsibility to fix this falls on governments, and there's quite a lot of different solutions to this. You can raise taxes, you can change how you distribute those taxes. I think with the increase in automation and artificial intelligence, the job market is going to continue shifting, and people who were previously considered skilled laborers are no longer going to have any job where there's demand for them. And at that point, they're considered unskilled labor, and there's just so much unskilled labor to go around. I would say there's a big shortage in skilled labor, especially in STEM careers, research and development. With the current crisis going on, there's a shortage in healthcare workers. So there's a lot of skills that need skilled workers, but not enough skilled workers to go around. I think there needs to be a major shift in the educational system. So instead of focusing on the specifics of certain technical skills, I think what needs to happen is people need to focus more on critical thinking and problem solving and communication skills, and basically better prepare people for an industry where things are going to be shifting very rapidly. The job market that we have today is going to look nothing like the job market we're going to have in 20 years or 30 years. I think there will definitely be jobs for humans for several more decades into the future. There's a lot of things that machine learning can't do and probably won't be able to do until we solve some huge technical problems. The problem is taking someone with a particular set of skills, teaching them new skills while they're still able to support themselves, and then put them into a different position doing something completely unrelated to what they were doing before. So I think one example is we really want to replace fossil fuel-based power production and industries with green technology. And, one thing we could do is take everyone that's going to lose a job because of fossil fuel production going away and giving them a job in green technology. That job may have a bit of a learning curve, and it might not just be as easy as, transitioning them, giving them some kind of training. Or maybe it is that easy, I don't know. It depends on the job, I'm sure. But I think as the population continues to increase, by the turn of the century, we're expected to be somewhere between 9 and 11 billion. I think at that point it begins to plateau. But there's going to be more and more people on this planet and fewer jobs, because some subset of the jobs are replaced by automation. And then there are certain areas that are starving for skilled labor where not enough people trained to do that labor. So I really think we need to revolutionize our education system and our job system, maybe provide some way to pay people to go to school and get the skill set for a completely new job. A lot of people have been talking about universal basic income, and I am a firm believer that we need something of that sort in the future. Andrew Yang, one of the early presidential candidates for 2020, he promised to give every American $1,000 per month, and the way that he would accomplish this is by introducing a value-added tax, which is something that they have in Europe. And this value-added tax would be an addition to the sales tax that we have, and the goal would be to create additional funds from the big tech giants in the United States that are making billions of dollars of revenue. So I think Andrew Yang's UBI proposal has received a lot of criticism, and some of it is pretty just. He's since proposed maybe some alternatives to that. One of the big criticisms of UBI is that whenever people don't have an incentive to work, it's likely that they won't seek out work, and this could lead to a wide range of mental health issues, alcoholism, all kinds of stuff like that. I believe I read a study where they found that this is exactly what happened. So there are definitely some concerns when it comes to UBI. Maybe what we need is some sort of conditional UBI. Andrew Yang talked about this on a podcast recently. Let's say you're paid with the intention that you now go out and acquire new skills for a new type of job. I think another form of UBI that might be appropriate is kind of more of a supplemental UBI, not something that someone would be able to live off of, but supplemental income on top of what you're already earning. So let's say you're making $15 an hour, and your quality of life might improve if you had $20 an hour in equivalent wages instead. So let's say you worked a $15 per hour job, and the government gave you an extra $5 for every hour you worked. That might be another solution for this. An idea that I've been throwing around is, why not just collect collect a pool of money from people that choose to donate and then distribute that among a group of people that have opted in to receive it. So maybe this is an idea that I'll pursue in the future. I don't think I have the resources right now, and starting a business like that might conflict with my job. So I'm going to keep that on the back burner and see where that goes in the future. But I would kind of consider that a decentralized basic income. That's kind of the name that I've come up with for this concept. Feel free to steal that concept if you want and run with it. Turn it into some kind of nonprofit. I think that would be great for everyone involved. There's also criticisms of capitalism and its contribution to the wealth inequality problem. And people that criticize capitalism suggest that we replace it with socialism. I think there are some elements of socialism that are good. I think there are some elements of capitalism that are good. So I think the most ideal system is a system that combines both capitalism and socialism, which, if you think about it, that's what we have today, to a certain degree. Capitalism is alive and well in the United States, and we have a bunch of public services that are provided. I think maybe the money that goes to the public services via taxes, maybe it could be distributed a little better. They say that the wealth tax is the most effective way to redistribute wealth, but I'm worried that doing that would kind of kill innovation, because the way I look at it, wealth that someone accumulates gives them leverage to pursue whatever kind of entrepreneurial goals they have, and they can use that to create some kind of disruptive technology that 10x's or 100x's some industry or sector. Elon Musk, for example, he used the wealth that he accumulated from PayPal in order to found SpaceX, and now he's flying astronauts from NASA to the space station, and he's planning to land on Mars and send humans to Mars within the next 4 to 6 years. I think if we had a very aggressive wealth tax, then that sort of thing would not be possible. I could be wrong in this regard, but I'm still pretty bullish on the concept of capitalism as a means to innovation and a means to research and development. And I think it incentivizes people to work hard and try to achieve really great things like Elon Musk does, for example, like Bill Gates does. At the same time, I think there's a reasonable amount of taxes that you could gain from those kinds of people and give to populations that need it. So I think the true solution is some happy middle ground. But I think I've talked enough about this topic. You might have some disagreements about some of my viewpoints. So if you do, bring it up in the comments. We'll have a discussion. We'll figure it out. This is just my opinion, and probably horribly misinformed opinion. I'm not an economist, I'm not an accountant, I'm a computer scientist, so I have a slightly different lens that I'm looking at this with. But let's just say I'm really bullish on technology and innovation, and I really want to see that flourish. I really want us to get to the point where we have a thriving space-based economy. You know, we're mining asteroids, we're colonizing other planets and other moons. But I think there are a lot of problems that we need to solve, economically speaking, and I think there are a lot of potential solutions. We just need to start implementing these solutions and see what works and what doesn't work. If I ever have more leverage, let's say start a business and generate some wealth for myself, one of my goals is going to be try to figure out how to disrupt this part of the industry and do what I can to help wealth inequality crisis. We'll see if I actually accomplish that. I'm getting close to 30. I'm already very aware of my mortality, and I'm pretty much halfway done with my good years, give or take, unless there's some technology that will vastly increase the lifespan of humans in the future. I kind of hope there is. Enough about the economy, enough about wealth. Let's talk about another topic that keeps me up at night. And when I say keeps me up at night, I don't mean that literally. Hopefully I can sleep soundly after this, but I do think about these things quite a lot, so, you know, it's just a figure of speech. The second thing that keeps me up at night, and I think this is one of the greatest existential threats of this century, and it's something that we should all be taking a lot more seriously, is climate change. So when you really think about what's going to happen over the next few decades and the rest of the century, it gets really depressing. Just a few degrees Celsius of an increase in our global temperatures is going to wreak havoc across the entire world. California's been on fire for the last decade. I believe 7 out of the 10 summers this decade have had the worst wildfires ever in California. And this is only going to get worse. The change in distribution of global temperatures has caused hurricanes to get worse, and hurricanes to disrupt areas that were previously not considered hurricane areas. I believe Europe is going to really receive quite a few hurricanes going forward. Rising sea levels mean that coastal cities will have to be evacuated at some point in the future, or at least the water levels will slowly rise and send more and more people to migrate to other areas. Personally, my goal is to go as far north into Canada as I can, and I'm really excited about Starlink rolling out. At some point, I just want to settle down and build a small house in the countryside, have satellite internet and solar power and a well water, and try to be self-sustaining. We'll see how that goes. That'll be exciting content for the channel if I ever get to that point. But this is such a huge problem, and we're the problem. 30% of contribution to climate change is agriculture, so our farming techniques and our animal farming especially is just exacerbating the problem and further accelerating climate change. The construction industry in general has a big impact. Transportation, and transportation is why I'm really bullish on electric vehicles, and I've got a bunch of Tesla stock and NIO stock. I can't wait for us to get to the point where we no longer need to own vehicles. Elon Musk's goal with Tesla is, after he's fully developed the full self-driving capability of Tesla vehicles, he's going to turn it into this rideshare service like Uber or Lyft, where you have self-driving rideshare. And at that point, I'm never going to get a car again. I'm just going to rely on rideshare. And it's all going to be electric. I hate maintaining a car, and I hate driving in general. So that's going to be a huge weight off of my shoulders. And between now and then, I might just replace my car with a bicycle and try to go to the grocery store on a bicycle or something like that, or maybe even walk. If I pick my location strategically, I really don't see a need for me to have a vehicle. And then my personal contribution to net neutrality would move the needle just a little bit. I think there's a lot of personal responsibility that comes into responding to climate change, but I think there's also a lot of government responsibility. They need to create incentives for us to invest in green technology. That would involve subsidies for green technology, infrastructure, and it would also involve a carbon tax, which I really hope they implement at some point. A carbon tax would be huge for the environment. And looking into the distant future, I think one of the other things that could really benefit from innovation is the mining industry. We mine for a lot of precious materials that are used in medical equipment and technology like smartphones and computers, and that also takes a toll on the environment. So what I'm really excited about in the near future is asteroid mining efforts. And so there are already a few companies that are working towards this. Hopefully SpaceX finds this to be a profitable venture to explore. There are a lot of near-Earth asteroids that are potential candidates for early mining. Maybe eventually we'll have automated mining or human-aided mining in the asteroid belt, but I think that's still a ways off. And this is going to be a $1 trillion industry. There are so many rare resources that can be mined from asteroids, like gold and copper, nickel, and stuff like that. But yeah, the climate change crisis is getting worse and worse, and that really keeps me up at night. I really hope that we figure out a way to solve a lot of those issues and continue to innovate in green technology, continue to offer incentives to innovate, and continue to stigmatize the use of fossil fuels, because lobbying to keep fossil fuels is a huge industry on its own, and I think that needs to stop really fast. So another thing that keeps me up at night is the potential threat of a human dystopian government. So this one is starting to sound a little sci-fi or a little conspiracy theory, but I try to think about this objectively. We're getting to the point where the government has the potential to know everything about us, and even if location data, for example, is anonymous, that data can be combined with other data points and used to instantly identify who you are. And I think this is not only the case for the government, but I think it's the case for private companies, even individuals if they had enough motivation. There's so many ways that different people do things, but the combination of those ways is very unique to certain individuals. So there's this concept called browser fingerprinting. A malicious actor can take a bunch of different data points about you, like the resolution of your screen, your browser agent, your mouse movements, and other mannerisms, and they can use that to uniquely identify you. And just imagine what the government can do. Yeah, this is starting to sound a little tinfoil hat-ish. So suffice to say that there's a lot of information about us out there that we voluntarily provide now. And as technology advances, we're going to have even more and more invasive technology. It's all technology that I'm going to adopt because I'm an early adopter. So for example, AR is going to become ubiquitous. We're going to have smart glasses with cameras in them that map your entire house. They map the roads. They're going to provide a lot of convenience because, let's say, you could have virtual monitors, spread throughout your apartment. You wouldn't need a TV. You would just have a virtual TV on the wall. This all sounds science fiction-y, but it's very, very possible. Just look at the great strides that the VR industry has made recently. Just look at how sophisticated the AR capabilities of VR headsets like the Oculus Quest are. This is going to become ubiquitous in the next few years. I think they're just solving the last few technological hurdles right now, like the display technology. There are probably some challenges with inside-out tracking and battery technology. So I think there's a few things that still need to be solved to have a really good user experience, but once those are solved, this is going to be everywhere. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is what it's going to be like. I think that has the potential to boost productivity a lot. You could be working while doing chores and at the same time like using gestures to go through your emails. Let's say you really want to exercise and walk an hour a day or run an hour a day, and you also want to catch up on a Netflix show. You could probably multitask. Maybe it's not recommended because you're going to be completely distracted from things around you like cars, but you know, it might be a possibility to watch Netflix while you're walking. Just think about the entertainment industry. Like Pokemon Go is great, but AR glasses with Pokemon Go is going to be absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be hatching so many eggs and catching so many Pokemon. You just wait. But the downside is now there's going to be much more access into our daily lives. Just think of phones with cameras that you have in your pocket, and then you take out, you're showing your face, you're showing your surroundings. But if your device is on your face, then you're showing a lot more of your surroundings a lot more of the time. Now, I'm not saying this to be alarmist and say technology is bad or AR is bad, because I am definitely going to be getting in on AR on day one. What I'm saying is there are definitely some problems to consider, and if a government ever got to the point where it's actively malicious and is out there to harm us, then they would have so much power at their disposal. And then beyond that, we have stuff like Neuralink, which is also a few years away. It's going to be a chip in your brain that will have the benefit of increasing your cognitive abilities and hopefully solve things like Alzheimer's and dementia. You're going to have the ability to record and replay memories. And that's something I'm going to be an early adopter of too. I'm going to install one of those things as soon as it's available, just because I'm an early adopter. But yeah, that's going to be a whole other dimension of invasiveness, and it's really starting to get into, you know, the more sci-fi topics like the Minority Report movie and thought crimes. The impact on the human race is going to be absolutely huge. This is really going to advance technology and human intelligence, and I'm really excited about that. So we have all these amazing technologies, but the government may have the potential to be ever more present in our lives and influence our lives in more subtle ways. Just think of all the election meddling that happened during the 2016 election and all the stuff that's happened on the internet since then. This is only going to get worse. And what I'm hoping will happen is that we'll have a completely decentralized internet in addition to the internet that we have now. There's something called the Tor network, which is mostly centralized because you have to have Tor nodes up and running. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. I think we need something that's a lot more user-friendly and a lot more censorship resistant. I'm really excited about blockchain technology and what it's going to do as far as decentralizing the banking industry and the lending industry and the insurance industry. I think that's going to be incredible. And that decentralized basic income idea that I mentioned earlier, it would probably be using some sort of blockchain technology. I think maybe blockchain has the potential to serve some sort of role in the decentralized internet because it's immutable. It has the potential to have a completely public ledger or a private ledger in the case of coins like Monero. I think that sort of technology has a lot more potential and stuff outside of currency. I think we should really focus on having that infrastructure in place. But yeah, I definitely agree that I'm getting into tinfoil hat territory here, but it's something that I think about. I try to be level-headed about it, but it's an interesting thought exercise just to think about that stuff. You know, just don't go all Alex Jones with it. And I think the last thing that keeps me up at night is another existential threat that we're going to have in our lifetime, which is the onset of artificial general intelligence. So right now we have very narrow intelligence when it comes to machine learning applications, like algorithms that suggest what you might want to buy on Amazon or your recommendation feed on YouTube, face filters. Those are all kind of narrowly focused AI, and they're nowhere near the capability of the human brain when it comes to cognition and consciousness. GPT Model 3 is an amazing language model that is getting really close to convincingly passing the Turing test. It can convincingly write articles that look like they're written by real people. It can convincingly write poems that sound like they were written by the original author. And I don't really have a machine learning background, so this might not exactly be a good summary of it, but the potential for learning in the GPT-3 model right now is only bounded by the amount of hardware available, and it continues to scale when you add more hardware. So it very well may be the case that a GPT-4 continues to make advancements over GPT-3. And then we have these huge advancements like AlphaGo and AlphaFold, which was recently announced. Protein folding has been a problem that's been pretty much unsolvable for around 50 years, and DeepMind has greatly increased the ability to predict how proteins would fold. And that's going to revolutionize the drug discovery industry in a few years, probably. But you know how I mentioned a dystopian government earlier? I think there's a potential for a dystopian government that is basically just a super intelligent AI that basically makes all the decisions for us. I think this is a very real possibility, and Elon Musk has said that he's incredibly concerned about this sort of thing and says that we would benefit from more regulation when it comes to the advancement of AI. And I completely agree. But really, I don't have a strong background in machine learning, so anything that I say is speculative here. But I've talked enough. Let me wrap up this video. Are there any things that keep you up at night? Let me know in the comments. What are the kinds of things you're worried about? Did everything I say just come off as complete garbage? Did you agree with what I said? Did you know that I have a Discord? Did you know that the link for the Discord is in the description? Go join my Discord. Go follow me on Twitter. This has been kind of a long video. So sorry to my editor who's going to have to skim through this and cut out all the awkward pauses. But anyway, I just wanted to get in front of the camera and just say a bunch of stuff about things that I'm thinking about. Hopefully it resonated with you somewhat. Hopefully it gave you ideas of things to think about. And I highly recommend you check out that book that I mentioned, 21 Ideas for the 21st Century. Check out that other book that I talked about, Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Those are two really great books. And I guess I will see you guys next time.